Throw those rascals in the truck bed and hitch up the trailer, Mama. It's time for another half-baked episode of Nature Calls.
Welcome, everyone, to the Nature Calls podcast. My name is Mr. Pete. I'm your host for the show. Outside the recording studio here in Wahoo County, the grass is finally turning green and the hot summer weather is just around the corner. With it comes fishing season. The annual Kids Fishing Derby is going to happen in 2 weeks. So to get everybody in the mood for baiting hooks and putting on bobbers, here's a little story about a big trout in a little pond.
My grandmother was a stern woman. By that I mean, she drank coffee that smelled like fresh asphalt, served up breakfast at exactly 6:45 every morning, and could whip up a 3-course dinner out of nothing more than paper towels and clothespins if by chance a busload of nuns happened to drop by unexpectedly. She was sitting in her after-breakfast chair and slurping her 5th cup of asphalt when she rustled the newspaper to get my attention. She said to me, "I need you to reel in a 10-pound trout next Saturday. Think you got it in you?" Those words were like a bell going off in my head. I knew what was coming next. The kids' fishing derby season had arrived. It was that time each summer when kids who could barely spell fish were forced to stand at attention under a grueling July sun as their fathers shouted orders and their mothers refused them bread or water until the prized money fish was caught on shore and stowed in the icebox. I was 12 at this time and was considered a has-been on the kids' derby circuit. I was too old to compete with toddlers, too young to run with the teenagers, and in my grandmother's words, not good for much of anything. But then again, she was a crafty old woman and wasn't above bending the rules, for example. She might happen to smear my age on the fishing derby application as long as I didn't sprout any chin hairs on the morning of the competition. She herself had faced hardships as a child of the Great Depression, and as such, expected children, no matter how young, feeble, or good for nothing, to pull their weight when prize money was on the line. She said to me, "Says here, any fish with a yellow tag pays $200, catch the red tag and win $500. She stopped reading long enough to stare me down. I could see sharks circling in her eyes. "You think you got it in you, boy? Can you catch us a $500 fish?" Now, you need to understand this opportunity from a 12-year-old's perspective. When you're that age, $500 sounds like a colossal amount of money. I mean, forget wasting money on sea monkeys and G.I. Joes, we were talking real cash-ola now. With half of those earnings, I could buy me a one-man submarine. Nothing too fancy, I'm not trying to be greedy here. Just something big enough with an oxygen tank and some elbow room for me to explore the lake bottoms near our home. Here's something else you need to know about my fishing history. Shortly after taking our first teetering steps, my brother and I were put through a series of grueling fish camps where we trained from sunup to sundown in the art of catching rainbow trout. It was nothing for us to catch and clean a couple hundred fish every summer. We became hardened bait casters. You know the kind, kids who wore bubblegum tattoos down their forearms and had rolled packs of candy cigarettes in their shirt sleeves. Heck, we were in all regards steely-eyed fish thugs who smeared salmon eggs on our back pockets and challenged the world to do something about it. What our grandmother brought to the fishing derby scheme was equally matched by our grandpa's cunning abilities. He was born a master caster, a man of special fishing skills who was known far and wide for his uncanny ability to snag trophy-sized rainbows in little more than a highway pothole. I could hear the keys of his calculator tapping away in his den. What is a den, you ask? This was a time in American history long before the term man cave ever existed. Fathers back then had dens, and as the name implies, it was like stepping into a predator's lair. Small children were banned from going in there. The room had trophy animals hanging on the walls, a large industrial desk was in the corner, and the morning edition of the Wall Street Journal lay open on his desktop. He was sitting there, a pencil clenched in his teeth as he calculated target coordinates for each cast I would make. The trophy fish, Red Tag 1, was as good as ours. He just didn't know it yet. It was a long drive across the desert to the mining town of Cactus Patch where the fishing derby was held. My brother and I spent the time stretched out on folding pool chairs in the truck bed. The dry desert rolled by as dogs licked our faces and we sipped on warm Shasta sodas and read comic books in preparation for our big mission. On the morning of the derby, there wasn't a single cloud in sight. Silvery heat waves rippled across the desert floor, and I could tell that there was no way I could catch this fish and get out of here without getting sunburned. On top of that, it was clear we weren't the only ones with a plan. A local church congregation arrived early in an old school bus and set up tables in the parking lot. The same folks who would offer you a warm handshake or a hug on Sunday morning were now selling coffee at a 500% profit. Night crawlers were $1 an inch, and if you forgot to bring a lure, God help you, they'd sell you one for 30 pieces of silver. The haggling over prices came to blows right in front of Derby officials, a scene that would have made the money changers at Solomon's Temple blush. There was a big fence surrounding the fishing pond to keep the cheaters out, but just outside the fence, the parking area was packed with 4x4s, sedans, and hippie vans. A man stood on a tailgate with a megaphone in his hand, shouting out the Derby rules like a preacher at a camp meeting.
Your child must solely casteth their bait upon the water and reel in the fish. No adult may approacheth or toucheth the fishing pole, lest ye perish from the face of the earth. Parents may prepare thy hooks with bait in the presence of thine enemies, and help put the fish on the stringer. Mothers, be especially aware of thy surroundings, as the hook that flies and the rod that whips might possibly plucketh out thine eyes.
I could see the greedy determination written on the adults' faces. Stony-faced fishermen studied each word, each syllable, rolling them over in their heads, trying desperately to figure out a gap in the sentence structure where an adjective might gain them just a sliver of an advantage over the next guy. The heat was baking everyone's brains. Anticipation of the competition choked off words. The air had the smell of baby oil mixed with dirty diapers. "Get on with it!" someone shouted from far in the back. The crowd made a hissing sound like a jet engine getting ready to take off. Then someone fumbled with the fence lock and swung the gate wide open, and all of humanity rushed in. Beer bellies bounced, ball caps flew off, babies wailed, mothers dragging 5 or 6 toddlers behind them sprinted the 100-yard dash along the shoreline against middle-aged fishermen with armloads of tackle boxes.
Time for a 30-second beer run. Ready, set, go.
Hi, I'm Dan Diffino, speaking on behalf of the Comfortless Chair Company in Low Point, North Carolina. We make all those uncomfortable chairs found in doctors' offices and waiting rooms all over America. It's not easy making seats that are ergonomically incorrect, but our trained experts know how to do it. Check out our website at mybuttaches.com.
All right, now let's get back to the story.
The mothers were knocked down and trampled by the barbarian horde, just like my grandmother predicted it would happen. Cries erupted on the far end of the pond as Red Tag 1 was spotted cruising at depth. Fingers pointed out the beast's every move. The anticipation in the crowd felt like a giant balloon ready to pop. In just a few minutes, a trout, no longer than the length of a kid's arm, might cause a riot that would send a wagon load of crazed parents to jail for life. It was awesome. We found our way to the shore, and next to us was a father with 2 twin boys. The dad's sausage-like fingers struggled to tie the tiny trout hooks onto the invisible fishing line. He said to his son Jake, "Now, Jake, son, now's the time, buddy. Your mama and me is counting on you to bring home the bacon on this. See now, I got bad news. Santa Claus might not stop by at Christmas time if you don't get the big fish down there. You understand? I need you to pay attention and make this happen." He then turned a disappointing eye to his other son and said, "Elroy, try not to embarrass us." Sweat dripped from that father's nose as he carefully balled cornmeal over his son's fish hooks, weighing each ball out carefully in his hand. At the far end of the pond, a guy held up a starter's pistol. The crowd went still with anticipation. Every man, woman, and child leaned in, the whole place looking like Da Vinci's painting of the Last Supper. Then, bang! The glassy water turned frothy as globs of salmon eggs, lead weights, and bright red bobbers rained down from the sky. Incoherent babbling and insane laughter filled the air. Unchecked weeping came from fathers whose children failed to get their lines in the water. $1-million night crawlers were strewn around on the shore and left to die in the sun. A back-casted lure snagged in a woman's beehive hairdo and jerked her wig off her head. The thing sailed out into the middle of the pond, where it floated for a minute before a seagull carried it off. My grandpa stood like a statue and calmly studied his clipboard and stopwatch. He glanced my way with a reassuring wink. My brother and I patiently waxed our fishing lines and sharpened our hooks while crying children were denied bathroom breaks. Under the surface of the pond, our competitors' weights sank in the muddy bottom and wedged down tight in underwater crevasses with sharp edges. Nylon lines snapped off easily, and when it happened, the air turned vulgar with shades of profanity that would have made a hip-hop rapper cringe. My brother and I raised our soda cans and toasted each other with sips of Shasta sparkling grape swill. We ate handfuls of salted peanuts and scoffed at the elaborate cobwebs of monofilament that spiraled out over the water's surface. In my mind's eye, I could see that old, fat trout beating a steady rhythm as it cruised just above the bottom in the cool, dark depths, far out of reach of the frantic mob. Looking around, sunburnt children were struggling with their dime store Zebco reels. Their tiny fingers worked desperately to haul in pan-sized trout that flipped and flopped as their parents stood around, shouting orders but helpless to act. One dad lost his mind when a fish managed to flip itself off the hook and swam to safety. He grabbed his kid's tackle box and drop-kicked it into the pond. Red Tag 1 was headed our way. Shocks of nervous electricity shot up and down in my bones. Blood pounded in my ears. Red Tag's shadow was now coming into view against deep green waters. The small plastic tag that was worth $500 stood out proudly above the dorsal fin like the conning tower of a Russian submarine cruising off the Jersey coastline. Time to make the beast surface, Grandpa whispered in my ear. I knew exactly what he meant. We had spent hours perfecting my cast in the driveway back home. I had no doubt that I could drop a lure in a Dixie cup at 60 yards. He said, "You must match the fish's speed and compass bearing in order to put the bait on its nose. All must be perfect." He arched his eyebrows curiously at me. "You don't want to end up like that unfortunate child. Do you remember the little boy?" I remembered all right. Stories had circulated for years among us child casters about a boy named Johnny Ray Michaels Jr., a 9-year-old from West Texas who in 1965 landed Red Tag 1 while the crowd circled him and poured praise on his head. Then at the very last second, Red Tag snapped the hook off the line and flopped back to safety. That boy disappeared that day and was never seen again. Grandpa raised his hand slowly, holding it up high, like a traffic cop. He studied his stopwatch for the launch sequence. Hold it, now! I sprang into action, bending my fishing pole into a tight circle as it launched off my shoulder. My eyes and hands worked in perfect synchronization. I released the line at the right angle and waited for the splash to happen. And waited. And waited. Until nothing. Behind me came the scream. My hook had buried itself deep inside another woman's wig. How? I wondered. How is it possible that 2 wigs were snagged in one day? The odds seemed too high, too impossible. Desperate to get my lure in the water and save my life, I tugged frantically at the woman's fake hair, finally snatching the wig loose. Hairpins cascaded down on me as I arched the hairball over my head. The sun was blotted out momentarily. The wig hit the water like a Scottish terrier diving in for a stick. Red Tag 1 had already motored past me and was out of range. The father with the twin boys recognized my failure and took a shot at greatness. Acting on instinct alone, he snatched the rod from Elroy's hands and bent the fiberglass into a hard U. The ball of cornmeal on the end of the line sailed a good 80 feet in a lofty trajectory before dropping straight down to Red Tag's nose. The line went taut. The beast swallowed the hook and began twisting against the line. What happened next is up for speculation. Whether Red Tag pulled him underwater or someone flung him in was never exactly clear, but Jake and Elroy's father went down like an anchor, and a great roar of jeering rose from the other parents. Insults pelted the man's soaked ambitions. Elroy's miniature rod and reel disappeared into the shadowy gloom that day and was never seen again. Rumor has it that the old crusty fish is still cruising in the blackness of that pond and still has that tiny rod and reel fluttering in its wake, and a sneer on his lips for anyone wanting to catch Red Tag 1.
We'll be right back after this not-so-hidden attempt to sway you to the dark side.
Be a doctor in just 3 weeks. Yes, thanks to our accelerated learning program, you can be a doctor in just 3 weeks. And you only have to study 20 minutes a day. Or become a dentist in just 1 afternoon. Don't like your present job? Don't fit into the current job market? Be a doctor or a dentist. It's easy. Call now and we'll include a nursing course for your wife. In fact, we can make your wife a nurse over the phone. Call Accelerated Medical School now. Don't be an asshole. Be a doctor.
I'm Igor Fumbleton with the Nature Calls Fishing News. It is being reported by scientists that cocaine is now finding its way into the brains of Atlantic salmon. It seems that after humans consume cocaine, they urinate the chemicals out of their system, where it finds its way into rivers and streams, and consequently is showing up in the brains of the fish. We sent out a reporter to a small fishing village in Colombia, South America, to investigate. Here is his interview with a local fisherman.
Tell me what you guys are finding with the fish down here.
Yeah. So, the fish, the salmon, they're crazy. They're like loco. Their eyes are always dilated, like all the time. And they're like super macho. They got super strength.
Like how macho?
Like they swim faster than a speedboat loaded with drugs. You know? The speedboats? Like really hard for us to trap them in the fishing nets.
Do you notice anything else strange besides the speed and the dilated eyes?
Their weight. These fish are super skinny, real super skinny. And sometimes they, are sniffing. You know, like with their nose. Like they spend too much time in the bathroom. You know, with the nose messed up.
Researchers are asking fishermen who come into contact with cocaine salmon to immediately contact their local wildlife agency. The goal here is to get the fish off the coke and into counseling. For the Fishing Report, I'm Igor Fumbleton.
Our musical guest for this episode is the Williams Brothers Band. James and Phil Williams have been playing music for a long time, and they are one of the top performing musical acts on the West Coast. They've worked with nearly everyone in music industry, including the Wailers, Three Dog Night, Montgomery Gentry, Everclear, Ramblin' Jack Elliott, The Guess Who, John Hyatt, Uncle Cracker, Big Head Todd, and Derek Trucks. I could go on and on about these guys, but let's get to it. So here we go. Everybody, make sure your tray tables are in the upright position and your seatbelts are fastened tight, because here they come, the Williams Brothers Band on Nature Calls.
How y'all doing? That's right? We've been waiting for this one for a couple years, so let's just get into it. Go down to the building, have a little fun. blue. I had a girlfriend who meant the world to me. She went to Grand Junction, now she ain't like she used to be. Oh, sweet mama, yeah, that goddamn deep yellow blue. Oh, sweet mama, yeah, that goddamn deep yellow blue. It's the end story. Preach the Bible through and through. Went down to deep yellow now, that was preaching days. Oh, sweet mama, yeah, that goddamn deep yellow blue. Oh, sweet mama, yeah, that goddamn deep yellow blue. What's up?
Hello, I'm Fred Ponceloni III, president of the Fart Retrieval League. We all know that millions of farts are released by Americans each day. But did you know not all of them are free to rejoin the atmosphere? It's true. A small but significant number of farts each day are hopelessly trapped in seat cushions, suspended forever in cotton padding or foam rubber. We're asking you to help rescue those forgotten farts by sending your donations to the Fart Retrieval League. We'll send you a booklet entitled The Facts on Farts. And next time you're in a hotel lobby, do your part. Jump up and down on a seat cushion for several minutes and liberate a few trapped farts.
From the sports desk, the robot ping pong player known as Ace has broken new ground in the world of sports by beating the world's top human ping pong player. Ace was developed by the Sony Electronics Company in Japan, where its artificial intelligence and physical agility took years to synchronize. Unfortunately for Ace, his paddle and balls will be silenced forever as he has worked himself out of a job on the pro table tennis circuit. According to the International Table Tennis Association, you must be an actual human being to hold a membership. So instead, starting next week, Ace will begin his new job bagging groceries at the nearest Kroger supermarket. In a deal struck last month, Kroger will purchase 500 of the Ace models and begin training them to scan grocery carts in the checkout line, organize the food items, and load grocery bags appropriately with the eggs and bread on top, something that their human counterparts have been unable to master after 200 years of trying? We can only say, good luck, Ace. Hope they give you a raise after 6 months and some personal time off.
From the Foreign Desk. British protesters took to the streets yesterday after the government officially banned tobacco products from anyone born after 2008. Cigarettes, vapes, or heated tobacco are now off limits forever to those under 18. The protest was organised by the British tobacco industry and sent smokers into the streets with signs that read, "Bugger off, mate, and pass me a menthol. Hands off my jolly good cancer sticks. Vapes and tea is the British way. And of course the ever popular keep calm and kindly smoke on, old chap."
Well, it's once again time to load the dogs in the front and kids in the back and get some wind in my hair. It's been fun wasting time with y'all. Nature Calls is a production of Siegfried and Sonatube Publishing. Our sound engineer is Scat Bear, post-production by Marlo Wingerback, and produced by Hammer Good Times. Recording was made at Dandelion Studios in Wahoo County, Colorado. The show writers are James McHugh and Dick Hatfield. Our musical guest for this episode was the Williams Brothers Band. Now, the brothers' schedule for this summer is completely packed out, so if you want to catch their live performance, check out their website at thewilliamsbrothersband.com for all the show details. And we'll see y'all next time on Nature Calls.